Diane, I think people say that they would rather pay taxes, I think, than go to a networking event. It's a little scary, but you are the expert in this field, bar none. So I'm really excited to talk to you and ask you the obvious question: why does networking get people so not confident?
You know, it's an excellent question. I think part of it is because they don't really understand what networking is. They think that networking is going into a meeting and asking for something. They think that it's going to an event and, quote, working the room and chatting up people. They think it's using people. I had a conversation with someone the other day and she goes, well, this is the manipulative side of me. And I said, that's not manipulative, that's strategic. You're looking for what you can get and what the other person can get, both. So my definition of networking is it's building relationships before you need them, number one. And two, it's the transference of trust. So when someone says, use my name, that's the best gift that someone can give you. So I think the most important thing is, unfortunately, the name has been hijacked by people who don't do it well and do it in an obnoxious way. And then people think, oh, that's what it is.
Do you think when people go to networking events, though, that they are just kind of freaked out that they're going to have to meet strangers and strangers are judging them? And there's all this kind of mental angst that you go into. And I kind of have to laugh because I think, truthfully, people who are going to networking events, everybody's in the same boat. So, why not take the high road and kind of make the other person feel more comfortable?
Well, I think, what I do tell people is do make the other person feel more comfortable. I never go up to a group and try and break into a conversation. I always go to the person who's by themselves. I know it's more uncomfortable for them. And I also know it's probably going to be an interesting conversation because they're not necessarily there to kind of like chat. But I think, one of the things that really confuses people, again, is they think they're going in to get something instead of saying, who in this room can I help? Who in this room can I be a resource for?
I think that's a really, really, that's an empowering statement. And so along those lines, when you go to a networking event, what are the things that you can do in terms of preparing for that networking event to go and be able to help people that you meet there?
Well, so that's one of my 3 tips for today, is that when you do want to prepare, go online and find out some information. Find out about the organization that's hosting the event. If it's a one-on-one meeting, go to the person's LinkedIn bio. Find out a little bit something. Can you talk to them about their charity work? Can you talk to them about where they went to school or what some of their hobbies are? I put on my LinkedIn profile that I attempt to play tennis, and people just crack up at that. They're like, really, you attempt? And I said, yeah. So I think it's important to do some homework ahead of time because, we don't walk into situations. The first time you drive a stick shift, it's really not pretty. Why would you try and do that over and over again on a Mercedes and think it's going to be, you want to practice in a very safe setting and a place where you can make mistakes before you go into a one-on-one meeting or a conference that has, high potential importance for you.
Well, what if you don't know who's actually going to be at the event? You're going to, some kind of an event that is for networking. You don't have any prep on that. Is there something you can do to prepare still?
Well, yeah, you can go to the host organization website and see who's the leader of the organization, who's on the board. Those are starter conversations. Who are the speakers? I sometimes send the speaker a note ahead of time and said, is there a question you'd like me to ask during the Q&A? And then I have a chance to connect with the speaker.
Yeah, that's really smart. As a speaker, I would love that. And I think as a person who's networking, if you're getting to somebody who is in a position there to introduce you to other people, you go in with a friend, so to speak. You say, oh, we met online. It's so nice to meet you. And then ask them to do some introduction. That's a nice way of not having a cold, my name is, right?
Yeah. And one of the things, here's the second tip for you, is one of the fears we always have is that we're not going to remember someone's name. We're going to see them and say, wait a minute, what's the connection? And so I just own it. I always say to them, I'm great at names. I'm great at faces. I'm not good at them together. I know we've met before. Can you please remind me your name? This happened the other day when I was just walking around the city and I bumped into somebody and, the angst for me was realizing I'd owed him some money. And I'm like, I said, I didn't even say my name. I said, I owe you money. He just burst out laughing. And then I went to introduce him to somebody and I was going through what's his name. And fortunately he said his name first. So, I just own it. Another, another name tip is I wear my name tag on the right side. So when I shake hands, people can easily see it on my right shoulder.
Well, I love that tip. I think it's great. I have a little squirrely question though. Your name, Diane Darling, easy to read, easy to say, easy to remember. My name, not so much. So any tips in terms of, when I go, people ask me, my name, they say their name is, and they say, and you are, and I'll say Alyssa DeVere. I say it very, very slowly and deliberately. And of course, DVER is not intuitively obvious if they're looking at my name badge. But is there anything else that we should be doing in that live, my name is, or nice to meet you, that helps people with our names?
Well, the reality is they don't care about your name. They care about the connection, and they care about what, where this can go from here. So I rarely say my name, and often when I do, I have to be very mindful. I do have an easy name at the same point. If I say it fast, people say, Darlene, nice to meet you. And then I'm in the situation of when do I correct them, and if I don't, will they feel embarrassed and da-da-da. So I am dyslexic, so when I introduce myself, I don't say my name first. I say, we know each other through so-and-so, or I walk the dog on the corner who's the border collie. We met at blah, blah, blah. And so I try and make the connection because that's what matters. And then the name is actually kind of secondary. So I don't focus on the name. It's a nice thing to know, obviously. It's an important thing to know. But I don't feel badly when people don't get it right, and I don't put a lot of pressure on myself or other people to remember it.
All right, great. Well, that's good to know. It makes me feel better, especially. So we're at the event, we're meeting people, we're doing, right hand name tags, we're doing all these great things. Any other particular tips while we're at the event, and then how about after the event?
So my third tip is really about after the event. It's, it's follow up, because, I get these emails all the time. Oh, I can help you get more leads for your business. The reality is I don't need more leads, I need more sales. And so we all do. I mean, that's why we're here. And so part of it is that it's not necessarily just databases and contact, it's what you do with it afterwards. So I really encourage people to come up with a system that works for them. For me, what I do is I usually go on LinkedIn, I send them a customized invitation on LinkedIn saying, I really enjoyed our conversation about blah, blah, blah. Look forward to connecting in the future. If I have their email, I might also do an email and say, oh, here's the information I said I would give to you, or here's what I promised you. And if it's somebody who's really interested in, my business, I say, great, let's set up a call or a one-on-one meeting in person if that's what's most important.
Well, you teach all different kinds of people these tricks, networking, and I guess, what's the kind of results that you see when people do it more conscientiously? Everything you've talked about so far today has been taking networking a little bit maybe more seriously than just showing up, and using it as a way of really getting business. So, when people are too shy or otherwise, haven't done a good job networking for whatever reason, like what's the transformation that you see? Because I know in your work, it's one of the most powerful things for business people. It doesn't matter if you own your own business or not. Do you see people literally kind of blossom?
No, I do. And I think what happens is they realize it's not about them. It's about what they're giving for somebody else is the one thing that I really see is very transformational. I also see, frankly, they quote network less, but they network better. So, I see the same people at meetings over and over and over again, and they're collecting cards, and they're very busy, and there's a lot of activity, but it's not necessarily productivity. And so I think the most important thing to do is to look at this as, if I'm really starved, I will go to do fast food, and I get some food, but I probably don't get nutrition. I like to take people up a notch and say, think about this as some fine dining. Go slowly. You don't need to go to 3 or 4 places at once. Enjoy the experience of the meal, and enjoy the experience of the getting to know the person and finding out something a little bit more than just the skin deep. I jokingly say in some of my workshops, I'll ask somebody in the audience, is there anybody here who's happily married? And you get people who raise their hand, and I said, so tell me about your first date. And where I take this is, did you get married on your first date? And they all like, no. What would you have done if the person said, let's get married? And you'd like, I'd run. We go into too many conversations. What can I take right now? And that's sales. That's fundraising. that's not necessarily networking. And networking is the middle piece, which is really getting to know somebody. And then when you need the sale or you want to close the business, you go into a different place.
That's really good advice, I think, for a lot of things. But, you know, this message of quality over quantity, I can't agree with you more. Whether I'm presenting and then people always apologize, we have a small audience. And I'm like, that's better because I can get to know people and really cater to, you know, what they're digging and not digging as opposed to a huge audience, which you can't always. So really appreciate that tip, Diane. And it makes me feel better, too, knowing that sometimes spending more time to get to know somebody is a really good activity as opposed to getting out. You know, everyone wants us to network more, come to my event, do, right? So thank you so much. I appreciate your insight and advice today. And of course, I'm hoping that people will contact you because you give some great classes. You have a great newsletter and other tips available to people in all different ways. So thank you.
You're very welcome. Have a great day.
You too.